Empire.
With former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner, I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. We are joined by NBC Sports Washington's Brian McNally, who is in the middle of a crazy day at home. So, Brian, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. What's going on?
I just want to tell stories. I don't know if you have a favorite Karl Alzner story from your time around the team, because we all kind of dealt with Karl, and he was one of our favorites. But you were around the team for a long period of time, including that time when it was Hendricks and Ward and Brouwer and Karl, when it was just a great room.
A great group to deal with. Good guys who would look, we don't know anything, right? We're dummies. We're just reporters.
Yeah.
In there. We're talking to people. We need people who can explain to us how things work, so that when we then pass that on to fans and talk to them, we don't sound like morons. Like, we have some informed opinion. And that whole group was good. Like, that was, I've covered a bunch of teams. I've covered a bunch of Nats teams, Commanders teams. That group, and Karl was kind of the ringleader of that, was great at being able to be like letting you inside the room, not too far in the room, not like giving us everything, but enough that we kind of knew how things were going. And not just how things were going like that season, but like what mattered, what was important. I think that always stuck with me, because I think that's important. Whenever you're covering a team, you need someone who can pull you aside and be like, hey, that thing you said on the radio, that was dumb. Here's why. And can do that in a respectful way, and not, it's not contentious, and it's not, you're not firing vases at each other or anything like that. It's just like, hey, this is how things are from a player's perspective. And I think when you're covering a team, having that is invaluable. And that whole group was that kind of 20, what would you say, Steve? Like the 2010
to 2011 till beyond the cup year. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And it was always, I always loved chatting with Karl about that stuff. It doesn't always have to be on the record stuff. It doesn't always have to be even things about hockey. It could just be stuff about life in general. So
that's his podcast now, basically.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
I appreciate it. And is incredibly valuable for people trying to make sense of the sport, for sure.
Well, I find it's so important too, because we so often we think of things just so binary, right? It's like, this play happened and this happened because you gave the puck away, right? And hockey isn't like that. There's so much stuff that goes into it, right? It could be just the way someone's eyes are looking, or what happened on the play just before, so you made this read this time. And it's nice to be able to actually take a second and explain that to people, and have them listen and care, like this is why we do the things we do. Or maybe we had a bad game, and this is maybe why we had the bad game, because all the stuff that happened the day before, or that morning, or what we were feeling in the dressing room. So I just find that that ends up being, it's almost like you're getting something off your chest, right? Instead of just holding it in all the time and then going home and complaining to your wife or your girlfriend or another teammate. It's like, I can kind of complain to you guys a little bit, and then you guys can kind of put it out there the way that you usually, with a really nice spin on it to make us all look good. And that's kind of the way that I felt. I had to, I worked with my coaches and my teammates, but we work with you guys too. And I think that's so important to have a good relationship there.
You guys are kind of teammates now too, right?
We are kind of, yeah. We got the NBC Sports Washington thing going on here.
Oh yes, we are.
I was on some internal meetings in the playoffs, and it was kind of good to see people pick Karl's brain about the series and all that kind of good stuff. So, but I always said too, Karl, like, you guys have a PhD in hockey, right? You've done this since you were kids. You've done this since you were 3 years old. We don't have that. And as a reporter, you always have to be respectful going into a locker room. I'm not the doctor. I don't know everything. If I assume I know everything, it's probably not going to go well for me at some point. So you need as many different perspectives from the players, from the coaches, whoever you're dealing with. And like I said, you got the doctorate. I need to know what happened. And as you said, there are complicated times where my question is, who am I blaming? Karl, who am I blaming? And
yeah.
Dude, it's not that simple. And that is helpful for a reporter always. So
I wish I actually had a PhD. I'd have a green card by now if that was the case.
Gotta get you one.
But it's also a good point too. Like I just I've been listening to a lot of podcasts and stuff lately as well. And just someone brought up a good point that the way that like scientists will look at things, right, is somebody brings them some information, and instead of being like, no, that's not right. It's this, it's that. Instead of looking at things that way, you got to look at it as, this is new. Okay, why is it new? And explain that. And so I think that's a good way, not only for reporters, but for the players as well. Like if you guys see something and you bring the question to us, you're seeing that for a reason. And why are you seeing that? What does it look like? What are the optics of it? Because, obviously the what it matters what happens on the ice, but also matters what you guys see too. And if it doesn't look right, then there's probably something going on there. There's a little something in the underbelly that we need to figure out as well.
The coaches will see too, right? Like the film will show some of the things we see from up top.
100%. Yeah. It's hard to get everything in from the bench. When you can watch things from up top, you pick up things that we haven't seen yet. We don't always get those clips of the overhead view, right? So it's hard for us to figure it out. So it is nice where if you bring something up to me the next day and then I'm like, oh crap, I didn't realize that the last game, I better go and check the film and see what you're saying, because then maybe I'll learn a little bit too. So instead of just being like, no, you're wrong, I'm trying to do a better job of taking a step back and being, this is new. Let's figure out why.
And the other thing, Karl, I was always kind of cognizant of is like, I can ask you a question. Like that doesn't mean John Carlson has the same opinion as you, right? Like you guys in a locker room are going to have discussions and debates, and I'm sure some would have gotten heated at times. So there was always that knowledge of like, what I'm getting here is a truth. It's not necessarily the truth, because I can go to the forward group and they might see things one way, and I can go to the coaches and they might be, see things another way. The more people you talk to as a reporter, the more informed you're going to be. I always try to emphasize that to the younger generation coming up that's going to do this. Like, talk to people. It doesn't have to be on the record. Talk to them and see what they think and what they say, and then you'll have the perspective to maybe have a semi-informed opinion.
If you could only see how many battles there were between forwards and defensemen on who was at fault. It was always someone else's fault. It was never your own or never your D-men. It was always the forwards. It's so true. You gotta, like you said, everyone sees it different, and somewhere down the line, a mistake could have been made or something could have been fixed, and it just doesn't happen, and then someone gets blamed, and you hope that it's not always the same person over and over again.
Usually it's blaming me. Blame Wino has been for a decade now. When we come back on OzCaps, I want to get Brian's thoughts on kind of the Capitals off season, some of the bits we do on the Capitals beat, and of course later Brian gets to take on Karl's stupid questions. Welcome back to OzCaps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner and NBC Sports, I think, Deputy Managing Editor, is that your title? Brian McNally. I'm AP hockey writer Steve Wino. Brian's in charge of NBC Sports Washington digital stuff now, but he's still part of our Capitals group text. So whenever Capitals make moves, we make jokes, we talk about it and all that. So I'm curious your thoughts from a guy who's covered this team off and on for a decade, what you make of Brian McClellan and the Capitals offseason.
Brian's never shy, right? When he says we got to make these changes, he's usually pretty good at like just following through on it. I think goalie, obviously, we all would have said, in the off season and even early in the season, like maybe one of these guys is headed out of town or whatever, and maybe they're going to make some changes. Mac didn't mess around, did he? He just said, nope, bringing in 2 new goalies. We're going to go with it. I'm not worried about these young guys may be great a couple of years from now. I don't think the Caps at this point in their organizational structure can worry about 3-4 years from now. They're worried about next year and the year after, and bringing in Darcy Kemper. Certainly, look, the guy's going to, I think if he's not raising the Stanley Cup right now at his own party, he's going to do it tomorrow, right? He's got the cup
sometime this summer, right? Yeah.
I literally think it's this week. So he's going to, there's no better guy to bring in. Those guys don't usually become available. I think it gives them a structure and a basis going forward into this season to kind of deal with the other, maybe slowly work in the other changes they need to work in. Look, it's unsettled, right? Tom Wilson's not going to be there. And I know they throw December and those timelines around. He just had surgery in June. I know we all know Tom, like if anyone could come back from that injury quickly, it's him. But like, do you need him back in December? Can the team be settled enough that in January and February, you give him an extra couple months? To me, those are at least in the early season, the kind of the key question for me, and how they're going to make use of that. And getting Darcy Kemper gives them the chance, I think, to kind of settle in a tough division and figure out the answers to those questions.
I think it also just from seeing some of the goalie talent too, the prospects that are in this prospect pool. I think that kind of gives you a good timeline too, right? There's the 5-year deal for Kemper and the 3 years for Lindgren there. I think that's a good timeline for a goalie, right? You give him three more years of school and some time in Hershey and stuff, and then see where you're at, right? Because it's just so important to be able to have some homegrown goalie talent, right? And be able to have them kind of locked in. So yeah, you're exactly right. That's what I do love about Mac is he kind of tells it the way it is, right? It's not much of a game of guess what I'm going to do next. It's kind of nice that you can actually follow what he's saying.
Karl, was he that way for you guys? Because you like players, sometimes management can be very like, we're not telling you anything. Mac is honest with us, and I assumed that carried over to you guys, but maybe it's just you reading what he's saying to us. But like, was that communication, did you always feel like was at least there, even if you didn't like the message, at least you knew, hey, I have a pretty good idea of what this guy is looking to do this summer?
Yeah, I think for the most part, like he doesn't really give us much didn't give us much in year-end meetings and stuff, right? It was gotcha. What'd you think? You know, what kind of changes need to be made or whatever, and then he kind of takes it all in and then makes his decision. But for the most part, we've already talked about that as players, right? We've had our team party the night before, and we've all bitched about it to each other, so we kind of all know what we're gonna say, and then it's whether or not he goes out there and does it is the other thing. But even like in my free agency year, you know, like pretty much said right away that they had some things to figure out with other players, and it wasn't looking good. And it was like, I really hope you're lying right now, and it actually is going to work out. But you know, it ended up being exactly the case. So you do really appreciate that. Like when it's one of the worst things in sports, I would imagine it's the same in all the other sports, is when something comes out of this side of the mouth and then something comes out of that side, and, sure. And then you have no idea, right? Because you really put a lot of effort into, you know, helping and doing what they've told you to do. Like I had this exact situation happen to me in Montreal, and here we go back to chirping about Montreal. Why now? But
this is what we do. This is what we do here.
Exactly.
Both Julian and Montreal.
Oh man, and the GM too. He told me I had a conversation like, what's going on? You know, I haven't played in a few games here. You brought me back up and still haven't gotten the lineup. Like, what do you want me to do? You're going to play next game. If you play good, you're going to stick around and be in the lineup. If not, we'll figure something else out. All right. That sounds good. We go ahead and we implement these new stats that we're taking. And that game, it was up to 100% was obviously the best you could get. I think I was at 92%. The next closest was Weber at 86. And then after that, everybody was in the 70s or below. And I was like, sick. All right, I did it. I'm in the lineup. Next thing, I'm out of the lineup the next day and didn't get back in for another 10 games. I'm like, what? Don't tell me that if that's not going to be the case, right? And that right there is just what will bug players and make them not want to come back to that organization. So I think everybody, you know, whether it's the players or the media or the fans, appreciate, you know, shooting it straight.
Yes.
101 there. Like, don't tell somebody something and then backtrack immediately. Like, it's not a way to keep people on your side, right?
That's your management style, though, Brian. Which I give you a lot of credit for. Kind of running what you're running there is trying to be honest with people at your department. I know there's one story I wanted to ask you about. I know you've written it, you've talked about it, but the Nick extension story with Alex that you wrote about. You were the only person who witnessed the Ovechkin-Backstrom interaction when Alex signed his 13-year contract. Can you please tell this story real quick?
That's so funny. Yeah. I know I've written that before, but I was a young dummy reporter, just kind of joining the Caps beat. Maybe the year before, Wino, I'm not sure. This would have been 08, right? When Ovi got signed
13 years,
his big 13-year extension, which I can't believe is already over. Like we've gone through that whole contract at this point. But yeah, he and Nick were they had a big event at Cap One or whatever, Verizon Center at the time. And they announced to the fans that, you know, Ovi was going to sign I forget how Ted put it. Ted Leonsis got up in front of the crowd and kind of teased it a bit and then announced it was a 13-year contract, and the crowd exploded and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that Ovi has signed this extension. Everybody, it's not a Juan Soto situation. We know he's going to be in DC for the majority of his career. And I just happened to be leaving the arena in that elevator that goes down to the garage. And I think they had let us park on the players level for some reason. I don't know. My car was on their level. I got in the elevator just as Nick and Ovi were in the elevator. And I was saying, what's up, guys? They were leaving. I think, I forget the exact scenario, Steve. I forget if like Nick had driven him. I think that's how I put it. I'm forgetting my own story now, but regardless, I think Nick he had given Nick a ride, or Nick had given him a ride, whatever it was. And I'm in the elevator and they're playing it cool. Hey, what's up, guys? You're in the elevator with a player. You try not to say much or whatever. And we go down a floor and, congrats, man. Good luck. We'll see you later in the week or whatever. And I just happened to be walking away and they both jump into, call it, it was a truck. So I think it was Nick's truck. They jump into Nick's truck. And when they shut the door, mind you, they have not said one word since we've gotten on the elevators, 30, 45 seconds, maybe a minute. And all of a sudden I just hear this screaming from the car. And these two dudes are just wailing on each other, like laughing, like literally like I cannot believe I just signed a 13-year contract for $122 million or whatever it is. And there's nobody else around. Like I'm kind of like hearing their yelling and them just literally goofing on each other and just doing all this stuff. And I just had to smile and kind of walk away and be like, that's stuff most people aren't going to, even their teammates didn't see that stuff. But, it showed you how much they put into the sport, how much it matters. And you think like athletes are jaded or they take for granted that they're going to sign a big contract. Even that dude didn't take that for granted. Like he was overjoyed and over the moon, and they were acting like 10-year-olds. And I thought it was hilarious. So it's always stuck with me all these years.
It's a bunch of big kids in that dressing room. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's just that lesson was hammered home with that moment for sure.
That's just my favorite story. When we don't have a whole lot of time, Brian's got family stuff, a broken dryer at home. But when we come back on All's Caps, Brian is the latest victim of Karl's stupid question. Welcome back to All's Caps with former Capitals defenseman Karl Alzner and NBC Sports Washington's Brian McNally. I'm AP Hot Writer Steve Wino, and now Karl's favorite portion of the show, Karl's Stupid Question.
Yes, this is where we all have fun and the points don't matter. Thanks, Brian, I'm going to get you with a few new questions, ones that I haven't asked before, because I figured it was time that we switch things up, a little different flavor. But at the same time, there's one or two old ones. Okay, first one is, do you have a hockey saying that you hate?
I mean, it's almost certainly we just need to get it in deep.
Your puck's in deep, yeah, right?
Get the puck in deep. We just got to get the puck in deep, be physical, get in the corners. Like, please don't tell me that again. I need no one ever to say that to me again.
You know what? It's the truth. It is.
I know it is. That is the problem. It's kind of like, I know you're actually telling me something legitimate, but I just, it's my fault for asking a question where the answer was get the puck in deep. So that's always how I looked at it.
The question should be, so I know you guys need to get pucks in deep.
Yes, this is how I ask it.
Dude,
this honestly, I will say sometimes I understand what you're trying to do, puck in deep. Beyond that, what are you trying to do?
Yes, exactly. That's a good way to put it. Nice job. Okay, next one is, do you remember what your favorite toy growing up was?
Favorite toy growing up? I'll stay out of the video game realm because that was definitely would have been my, like Sega Genesis or whatever we had back in the day. Would have been my number one, like, go-to right after school. If we're going like when I was a little kid, I had like a little like a Sesame Street thing. I'm talking like 4 years old, like a little house or something with little tiny people. And I used to literally create scenarios. It was quite creative kid, Karl, or lonely, one or the other before my brothers came along. So it was this little like old school 1980s, like toy house with these ridiculous looking tiny people that I could like put like a cowboy hat on, or I could do all this stuff. So that was probably young Brian's favorite toy. Thank God video games came around, because otherwise I probably would have been screwed. So
I wish I could teach my kids how to have an imagination like that and just sit there and put clothes on toys or hats on things. It's
no screen time and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. And it's nice, but it's also not nice. But I like that. I was looking to see my favorite toy growing up was in here, but I'm sure the kids probably took it and hopefully didn't break it because near and dear to me. But that's a good answer.
Wait, what was your favorite toy?
It's a little dump truck. It's like this big, and if you push on the back of it, it just goes beep beep, stand clear, beep, beep. And I would just push it all day long, drive it around the house and stuff. So it is somewhat.
Your parents must have just wanted to chuck that thing out the window.
Absolutely. Okay. This one's fun because you get to see what kind of person you are a little bit. If you could time travel to any time, when would it be?
That's a great question. Time travel any time ever. I would probably go to like, I don't know, I would probably go to like colonial days. I kind of like colonial America, like, or North America, whatever. I think that would be the best. I mean, I don't want to go too far back. I feel like you're going too far back. You know what? I'm changing my answer. I want to be in the 1920s.
Yes.
I want to be like, modern medicine is like kind of a thing. I don't want to go too far back where like, you know, what is it? Like, what's the video game, Steve, where you die of dysentery?
Or Oregon Trail, yeah.
Oregon Trail. I don't want to die of dysentery.
Such a good game.
I want to live. It's such a good game. I literally want to be in the 20s where things were like cool and people wore cool clothes and they were inventing new dances and everything when Babe Ruth lived and all that stuff. I think that would be a cool time to be alive. But I wouldn't die of whatever.
Of dysentery, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cholera.
I think that would be my answer there.
What I thought you were going to say was World War II. I know your grandfather was in World War II, and you have a great story that I hope you turn into a book about kind of his time going back to Italy and all that. I thought you were going to say World War II for that very reason.
I thought of it briefly, and then I was like, no, I'd be in World War II. I don't want to be in an actual world war. My grandfather hated that.
But the end of it was pretty cool.
The end of it was cool. He got to go back. He literally was an Italian American. Well, he came over at 18, got drafted into the American Army, and then got sent back home and ended up in his home village. So, I'll write the book at some point, Steve.
I'm looking forward to that.
I got to do a little more research, but we'll get it out there.
I love that. I asked that to my wife Mandy right before we did this, and she picked 1920s as well. So
interesting.
Yeah. She loves. She's like, I'd like to be around the 1920s, but only if I was like a lady or a royal or something like that. I'm like, yeah, like everybody else.
A little bit of cash, a little bit of money.
Cash. Yeah, no kidding. All right. So the next question I got for you is there a personality trait that's gotten you into trouble? My example is that I'm ultra stubborn, and it's led to a lot of arguments at times. But what would you think that yours is?
I probably that at times I can be too reserved, probably the opposite of you there. So like something may happen where I'm like, should I say something there? You know what? I'm going to let that go. And then it snowballs into like a Seinfeld style, like comical, like, and then, so there's a fireball going on behind me. And I'm like, I probably should have said something there. I probably should have stepped in. So that would be my personality trait that I probably need to continue working on. Occasionally getting into trouble.
Perfect. 2 reserve. Okay. These next two are based on the would you rather question. So the first one is, would you rather have bad gas or dry mouth? Like really dry mouth?
Probably really dry mouth, because you're not fumigating a room, right? If it depends. If I'm like by myself, all right, probably the gas. But if I'm in a like social setting, I'll just pound water. Like that's all good. I don't need to like. But the idea of having bad gas in a social setting it's raising my blood pressure. That's making me a little bit. If you're around the boys or whatever, okay, that's fine. But if you're in like a real proper, I'll deal with the dry mouth. Yeah,
I'm probably on the same page as you there. But then thinking about dry mouth, like always just making that sound of like smacking your tongue together, and people hate mouth sounds too. That's not really something you want to listen to.
That's true. If it's going to be long term, maybe I would just take the. I just like, you guys deal with it. All right, I'm going with it.
All right. Okay. Well, and the last one here is: would you rather go without toothpaste or without shampoo?
Definitely shampoo. I can't not brush my teeth. I can't just. Some people can just do the like the toothbrush without the like. Oh, I forgot to pack toothpaste. I'll just like do a quick rinse. I hate that feeling. Like my mouth, it's gross. I don't like it. The shampoo, I can deal with it. I'll just I don't know. Isn't there dry shampoo? Why no? Can't you?
It's shampoo.
But then you could shave your head.
Any of it. Well,
okay.
You could.
You could shave your head. Okay. Well, let me pose this question though. Have you ever noticed that your breath is fresh after you've had an apple?
You
ever noticed that?
No.
So if you ever have
You can
bad
eat
breath,
apple?
yeah, if you ever have bad breath, have an apple, and it completely refreshes your mouth. So knowing that you could just, chomp on an apple and then rinse your mouth out with water, does that change at all, or would you rather still just shave your head?
I don't think it changes at all because I'd still have the feeling, right? If you're telling me it kind of cleans it, then I'd be like, all right. But if not, then I'd be like, I don't know. I'll live without the. No one knows if I didn't. I mean, this hair is ridiculous. It's curly and whatever. No one's gonna know about the no shampoo. I think I would still go toothpaste. I think.
Okay, you have an apple for breakfast tomorrow morning before you brush your teeth, and then text me and let me know what you think.
We got one here. I'm gonna pull this off tomorrow. Yeah, I'm learning some things here.
This is what we do. We have some laughs. We tell some stories. We learn some things. We learn about people's personalities from the answers to these questions.
Right.
Absolutely. That's the whole point. All right, that's all 6 for you. That was fast. Nice work. Okay, let me just quickly go back here. Pucks in deep. That was the answer. The dress up toy one. Very jealous. Good one there. And the gas and the shampoo. Okay. Whew. Let's see. Let me go back to my list here. And
the 1920s answer being the same as Manny's is a good one.
That definitely bumps you up there a little bit. But it brings you to 127 points, which puts you ahead of JJ. Really. Yes, it does. By 7 points. Congratulations on that.
I appreciate that. That's good. I feel good about that.
1920s answer. That was the one. Put you over the top.
If Mandy's if we're on the same page there, I think I was going to get some good points.
I hope you guys continue to be teammates at NBC Sports Washington as next season goes on. Brian McNally, thank you for joining us on AusCaps. It's amazing that Brian and I have known each other probably the longest of almost anyone in my adult life outside of my family. So the fact that we've taken him almost a year to go on this podcast is my fault. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you next week on AusCaps.